Welcome to a football show, Thursday edition. He is Zach Lyons back in the saddle. My name is Braden Gall, and we do appreciate all of you who join us each and every Monday and Thursday on this here product in the YouTube comments, Facebook comments, on Twitter, wherever you may consume us. We do appreciate you guys for hanging out. We've got a lot of stuff to do today, Zach. A lot of stuff to do today. Brought to you by Sinkers and the Kingston Group. Lots of stuff.
Lots of stuff. I'm excited. I'm ready.
So many things.
I listened to the show on Monday. You guys were like wrong on so many levels, so I'm just excited to be able to come back and just say how wrong you guys are. That's one of my favorite things.
All right. Well, I was going to start with, we got a lot of stuff to do. Okay. All right. You already derailed the whole thing. Now you got my brain going somewhere else. So on the show today, there are a couple of teams in the SEC that have been dominating recruiting. So we thought we'd have a quick conversation at the end of the show, like we do about the SEC occasionally on the product, about how maybe fans should be tracking recruiting and understanding how recruiting works. We are still 6 months away from any player signing a letter of intent, which of course everybody mostly knows, but it is worth talking about and talking through. And what does it mean as a couple of teams are surging onto the recruiting trail right now in the SEC? Of course, you've got a prediction about DeAndre Hopkins, so we'll get to that.
I know exactly when he's going to sign. I know I have 2 time frames of when he's going to sign, so I know.
Okay, so there you go. Zach does know everything. And then we're going to look, one of the main topics today on the show is going to be sort of how and when and trying to evaluate and judge Ran Carthon's first offseason as the general manager for the Tennessee Titans. We've sort of reached, not quite, I mean, literally one player away maybe from the conclusion of the first offseason for Ran Carthon. So we can kind of take a look at how fans should be evaluating and judging Ran Carthon in this first offseason stretch.
And it kind of speaks to general managers just in general.
Yep, I like that. But first, I want you to react to one of the takes I had, because it sounds like you have multiple reactions. So I'm going to get to this. Hang on. Let me tell everybody.
Well, you asked me. I was about to say, don't you want to get to our sponsors? You were about to skip.
No, I want to go sponsors first.
Okay.
Sinkers Beverages, the Kingston Group. You guys know who they are. Locally owned and operated, award-winning, both of them. And part of the reason we are partnered with both of them is because we use both of them. And if we use both of them, then you should use them too. I shop at Sinkers. I am a member of the In Crowd. I got a really cool allocation email saying, hey, look, Braden, we got this fancy new bottle of Heaven Hill Barrel Bond. And I'm like, oh, that sounds great. And I ran up and got it. But I got it only because I was part of the In Crowd. So make sure you sign up. You can do it online. Bluegrass, of course, up in Hendersonville as well. Again, award-winning, locally owned shop for decades in Nashville. Sinkers Beverages, Bluegrass as well. And the Kingston Group, buildkg.com. You guys know the name. If you are looking to buy a house, sell a house, or renovate a house, don't do it before you talk to the Kingston Group. Just remember the name. You don't have to know it every single day. We don't expect everyone to be doing large renovations to their house every day. But you need to know the name if and when that situation does arise in your life. So, Kingston Group, Sinkers, go check them out. All right, so I had one take I wanted to run by you.
Okay.
And then you just started the show with, you were just wrong about everything, which was part of the fun of not having you around.
It was just really the discussion around the best case scenario.
All right, so you start there, and then I'm going to lay out what I thought was maybe the hottest of the hot takes and maybe the more important take than the best case. But it sounds like Easton, for those that didn't listen, go listen to Monday show. Easton Freeze filled in. Easton says highest best case scenario is essentially getting to a Super Bowl. I said maybe AFC Championship game. I was clearly a notch or two below. You have largely, Zach, been higher on this team than I have been. So we were too low, too high. Give us your response.
You were both too high, especially Easton. There is zero. This fallacy. There's a fallacy that Easton has clung to because there is a mathematical. Everybody's equal, right? Everybody's 0-0 when they reach the playoffs. Here's the problem with that. The number 1 seed has won over 53% of the time in Super Bowls. The number 2 seed is 21.3% of the time winning in Super Bowls.
That's over about 71%. It's about 75 if my math is correct.
Yeah. I mean, this idea that everybody's created equal. No, 2 1 seeds just went in. The 5 seed and the 6 seed, this idea that the 5 seed and 6 seed, that underdogs can just win all the time, 4 teams, 5 and 6 seed to combine together. Obviously, nobody from the 7th and 8th seed has done it. And then the 4th seed is probably your highest, which is where the Titans would be, and that's barely over 12%. So
You're
this
talking about the
that
Super Bowl or
make
getting to the Super Bowl?
just because you make it, oh, you have a really good chance of going to the Super Bowl. No, you don't even have a good chance of winning it. This
So
the
give
reason
me those.
for a
Give me
reason.
those. No, sorry. Give me those numbers again. You're saying make the Super Bowl or win the Super Bowl? The
Super Bowl.
4. So okay.
Yes. So I mean, like his high was like, well, just because you make it to the playoffs, everybody's 0-0. Everybody has almost, you have a really high chance of making it. No, not really. I mean, you don't even have a high chance of just making it to the Super Bowl, let alone you're definitely not going to win it. So that was totally.
Well,
And you guys, hold on. You guys said that I would probably agree with Easton, and I totally do not agree with Easton.
Well, and I think the way you're wording it, I would disagree. That's how we were discussing it. When you say high probability, I think
that's exactly what Easton said. Easton said that if you get into the playoffs, that everybody pretty much has an equal chance. And that's mathematically, technically, that is true. But when you actually look at the data, it's not true. Like if you're looking at just straight, like 1 + 1 = 2, sure. But if you're using actual equations, no.
Welcome to the show, Easton. No, listen, I did not take it to be high probability or yes, they have a great chance. It's just that once you get in, anything can happen. That's how I've always looked at it.
But that's not true.
Well, but it is
mathematically not true. Like I just told you, it's not nothing.
Dude, okay,
not everything can just happen.
That's okay. That's fine. I understand math, but the Titans also just did the exact thing that we are talking about 3 years ago. And
they didn't make it to the Super Bowl.
I did not say they were going to the Super Bowl.
Easton
I didn't say
I
that.
am disagreeing with Easton in this part of the show. I have not gotten to you.
All right,
yet.
we'll get you're correct.
I am disagreeing with Easton's idea that anything can just happen because guess what? Anything can't just happen.
Well, and I would like to think that again, go listen to the show. You guys can judge for yourself.
And not everybody in the dance has a chance. That's a fallacy.
I said to him, I don't agree that they can do that. I don't think they have the talent to go that deep. I don't think they have the talent to go to win 3 of those games. It's the same thing I say about college football all the time. There's 50 teams that can make the playoff. There's only like 3 that can win the 2 games in the playoff. And that's sort of where I think the Titans fall in this, is that I think they are just as likely to make the playoffs as Jacksonville or pick another good team in the AFC. But do they have the ability and the talent to run 3 or 4? I think best case scenario is you maybe rattle off 2 wins. Maybe if you're lucky,
and I
get
disagree
a third.
with that. I don't even think that's their best case scenario. I think your best case scenario for this Tennessee Titans team, if everything goes right for this team, those 3 things you guys said, which you guys left off the offensive line, which I thought was really weird. So thing that
young rookie and youth development and coaching staff is tied directly to the offensive line.
The offensive line is its own category. Like it is totally deserves its own category after the mess that was last year. It deserves its own category. It's like pass catchers and wide receivers and all that kind of stuff.
All right.
Like, go ahead.
Well, Easton says, quote, "Of course not everybody has the same chance. The higher seed have advantages, but everybody in the dance has a chance." Listen, I don't even have time to go back and check.
The 7th and 8th seed have 0 chances right now. 0% chance a 7 or 8 seed makes it to the Super Bowl, or even let alone wins one.
Okay.
So not everybody has a chance.
All right, Easton, thank you for chiming in. We do appreciate it. I was expecting this to happen, which I'm a fan of. But mostly, tell me what did you have more about where I was wrong about?
Yeah, I mean, they're listen, the best case scenario for this team is winning 1 playoff game. That is their best case scenario. This is a team that is severely limited. This isn't a team that gets, happy-go-lucky. They get in and, best case scenario, they're going to rattle off a few wins. No, best case scenario, they win 1 game. That is the best case scenario.
I mean, if everything is perfect, I think you're getting into that second game and going like, I think my point is that once you get into that second game on the road against XYZ good team, probably
it's over. It's
Cincinnati,
done.
Kansas City, Buffalo. Is it possible? Is it 50-50? Probably not. It's probably 70-30, but you could do it. We've seen them do it before.
It's like 90-10. I mean, this is a totally different team than this 2020 team. This is a totally different team. Like that 2020 run to me is an extreme outlier for the last few years of NFL playoffs.
You mean so 2020 postseason, 2019?
Yeah.
season. Yeah, I got you.
Whenever they
yes.
went to the championship.
Yeah. 29. So the 2020 team, I think, was hosted the Ravens and got beat at home
Right.
in their first playoff game. Now, listen, that I think that's totally fine. I have no. I mean, you're not going to. I'm not going to stand on a table and fight for 1 win versus 2 wins being their best case scenario. I think the argument I was and he were maybe having and you're having is like, what is best case scenario? Well, a playoff bid, maybe a win, maybe a second, depending on what you think, but that's about it. Not worth yelling about. And then I settled on later, which is the one I really wanted to ask you about, because I wanted you to tell me if this truly is the best case scenario. And that is if for Ryan Tannehill to for this team to be sort of out of it, maybe 500, maybe Tannehill's injured, maybe he's not, but that around game 12 or 13, you get, for whatever reason, Will Levis is now your starting quarterback. He wins you 3 out of 5. He wins you 4 out of 6, whatever the number is. You see enough to know that he's the future, and you get a home playoff game. It's you get both, because I think Tannehill clearly gives him the best chance to make the playoffs. I think Levis is clearly the future. So what's the perfect scenario? Isn't a bridge? Isn't it a combination of those two things where you still get the home playoff game, which is reaching the upside that you think they have, while also maybe learning more about your future and finding the guy you think could be your starting quarterback for 10 years? To me, that is actually the best possible case scenario for the Tennessee Titans. And
I guess
that's a really, really small margin of possibility.
In your scenario, he's throwing, I guess, enough to get like 200 yards, a few touchdowns every game, maybe like 1 or 2 touchdowns in this offense. But like he's doing the equal amount of what Ryan Tannehill does in his absence.
Do you remember Ben? So Ben Roethlisberger, the first year they won the Super Bowl.
Yeah.
The Steelers won the Super Bowl in spite of Ben Roethlisberger the first year. And then the second time they won it because of Ben Roethlisberger, right? 2 very different ways that they were using him in that offense. I do not think that in any scenario, Will Levis is the reason they are winning games because he's chucking it around 48 times a game. That's not what I am more along the lines of what you're saying, which is he comes in, he shows enough to be a starter, he manages the game, he doesn't turn the ball over, he does what he's asked to do within the confines of the offense, but shows just enough to prove that he can handle the game, that he's a professional starting quarterback, and that he's ready to go to be week 1 starter next year. And oh, by the way, maybe you get a home playoff game out of the deal. That's
okay. So when they win the Super Bowl, it wasn't his rookie year. It was
06, I think.
06 was that the year that they won?
05.
So they that was the second year they won.
He was not
but the first
a good
year they made it. They lost to the championship game in the first year, so they made it all the way through. He let's see, what did he average roughly? He averaged 187.2 yards per game. 17 touchdowns, 11 interceptions over 13 games started. Okay, so 30 sacks in those games.
He was man.
I guess so. That
he was not great that season.
Yeah.
He was not a good quarterback.
He was not great, but man, that's a lofty expectations.
Well, it's mostly it's just the thing that came into mind when you were kind of describing how he was going to play in this stretch. In my head, it's like the thing that comes to mind is the Steelers winning around Ben, not because of Ben, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I mean, I guess I could see that. Best case scenario for that would, I would probably be on board with that particular take. Because really I wrote at stackingtheinbox.com that was out today was about that you can figure out during this glow up what Will Levis is without Will Levis playing. But if Will Levis plays and gets valuable game experience and you still get to the playoffs, you would like a playoff win out of Will Levis to really give you hope, because you don't want to lose because of Will Levis. Because if you lose because of Will Levis in the playoffs, like your best case scenario has to end up with a win in the playoffs. Because if you lose in the second game, I'm not too upset about that, right? Like you got one playoff win.
I see what you're saying. I think if I'm a Titans,
like if he goes in and throws 2 game-losing interceptions in the first round of the playoffs, this is a fan base will become unglued.
But I agree with you. They would. I think that's wrong, though. I think what you have to look at the 10,000-foot view and the 10-year view of it, not the one-game view of it. And while it may feel like Ryan Tannehill, the fact that he could do it within the first month, 2 months of playing in the NFL as a starter, to me, would be a sign of significant potential growth in the future. And while that sucks in the moment, and I agree with you, Twitter would be an absolute dumpster fire at that moment. To me, you step back from that after letting the intensity of the loss, maybe the sting, wear off, and you go, well, what did we really learn? We learned that Will Levis is our starting quarterback next year. Full stop. Ryan Tannehill's out. Levis is the guy. He showed us
But
enough to
not
win
really
games.
a clear answer on the franchise guy.
I think that takes – this is going to go into our Ran
Yeah.
Carthon conversation. I think that takes time. That takes years to figure out. Like, Jordan Love has been at the Packers for 2 years. They have no fucking clue whether or not he's going to be any good or not. Like, I mean, there's very few Zach Wilsons out there where you just, like, know within, like, a year, clearly not the guy. Like, it just takes time sometimes to figure that out or not. I would be excited if Will Levis wins 3 out of 5 and they somehow win the division on the last game of the season and they get into a playoff, win or lose. I'm ecstatic if I'm a Titans fan.
Here's my overarching best case scenario for this team, regardless of what they do in the playoffs. The last game versus Jaguars does not matter. I am so sick of these playoff chances for the Tennessee Titans coming down to like the last game of the year. I just want to be done by then.
And Blaine Gabbert is starting instead of Marcus Mariota. Is that who started instead of Marcus? Who started that year?
Yeah,
it was Blaine Gabbert. Okay,
that was versus the Colts.
It was against the Colts. Yeah, they've had some big ones against the Texans in the final week. Like it's always full of just all types of drama. And week I guess 18 now. Okay, I just wanted to get your thoughts on that because I sort of mentally stumbled on what I thought was, okay, Ryan Tannehill's the best for this team. Will Levis is the future. Well, what's the best combination of the two? Well, it's to make the playoffs and to have Will Levis get experience. Win or lose, that's how I
think if
figured.
you're viewing it through the Titans' eyes, I think if you hooked them up to a lie detector, they would say, we want Ryan Tannehill to play all year, and we want to see what Will Levis does behind the scenes. Like, we want to be able to see enough what Will Levis – and they can. They can absolutely know that.
I would agree with both of those things. I'm okay with that. All right, so let's get into your DeAndre Hopkins decision. Of course, he is now, according to reports, again, football show brought to you by Sinkers Beverages and the Kingston Group. Remember those two names. DeAndre Hopkins mulling offers right now, according to reports by both the Titans and the Patriots. He will make a decision when, Zach Lyons, based on science.
You got 2 time frames. Okay, because this is what happens in the life of media, especially typically me. Because when the Julio Jones news broke, I was here at this house. We were in the process of doing some remodeling work before we moved in. Hands filled up with, putting in some electrical outlets and lights and all this stuff. So I didn't check, I didn't have my phone on me to check all the time. So you got two options for this week. So roughly around 1:30 p.m. on Sunday, all the way to 8:30 p.m. while I am at visitation, not being able to check my phone like a good husband whose wife's grandmother just died. So we got that time frame. So that's Sunday.
Good husbanding there.
Yes.
Put the fucking phone away more often, people.
Yeah. Sunday, June 25th, between 1:30 p.m. and roughly probably 8:30 p.m. by the time it's all said and done. Or the funeral service is on Monday, June 26th, starting at 2 p.m. with no end time listed, which means that there's the funeral service, then there's the grave visit, I am assuming, in this situation, and then going to the in-laws, families, houses, and everything up there. So those are your chances that DeAndre Hopkins is for sure going to sign during one of those times when I cannot react to it.
Do I have permission to laugh at you?
Yeah, I don't care.
Okay, that's ridiculous, but I love it. Yeah. I just, it's a very serious topic. I don't want to laugh in the middle of.
Listen, there's no kind of joking off limits for me. I've been reading this book, but that kind of reinforces that sometimes the worst stuff is stuff you should joke about. And I am very my wife was asking, what do you want to do for your funeral? We should probably, kind of talk about arrangements and stuff. I'm like, well, I know I'm dying soon, but I don't fucking care. I'm dead. I don't care what the fuck you guys do.
I will say, I was living next to like an old black church for a couple of years, and the funerals on Sunday, it was almost always Sunday mornings. They would come out in the procession, they get into the hearse, and it would be very peaceful and very somber. And as soon as that car left, it was a party. And I'm like, you know what? y'all don't be. If I at my funeral, be just party, just have a great
Yeah.
time, laugh and joke and make each other smile and whatever. Like don't
Like
sit around and
I'm probably just gonna say, just get me cremated and just dump my.
I'm good with that.
Listen. You could throw it in the trash. I am dead. I will never know what you did.
at oracle.com stadium, just right there on the 50-yard line.
Yeah, wherever it's at. I don't even care.
Oracle oracle.com stadium.
And then
okay, so
but
DeAndre Hopkins is going to announce on Sunday or Monday then. There you
Sunday
go.
or Monday, I'm telling you, because at this point, no other team is even sniffing around the fact that they want DeAndre Hopkins. So this is his second in the last week, his second effort to try to generate a third interest. Because this is clearly from the agent, right? Because they're mulling over offers from both teams. And Mike Girardi said that they're expecting, maybe a third team to jump into the mix and all that stuff, just in case a wide receiver room is disliked by a team or an injury happens or something. Like, this is a guy that knows his market's not as hot as he thought it was. And this is a last-ditch effort. So I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it Sunday or Monday when I'm not near my phone.
To me, I think through why the Patriots would invest in him. And there's only to me, the only option is to try to prove to their fans that they are still putting in the effort and that they think that maybe they're a wild card team with them. They are in the toughest division, maybe in all of football. I don't honestly see Belichick offering a lot of money to a player that largely doesn't help them all that much in terms of playoff status, which means the offer might be low, which means the Titans might have the best offer, which means they're floating the idea so that they can get the best possible offer from one of these teams that does have a championship situation, i.e. Buffalo or Kansas City.
I don't think either team's in.
I don't think they are. And so I
don't think they should be in if you're really, because Stephon Diggs is already complaining about not getting enough targets, which is mind warping to me because he gets a lot of targets in that offense. But apparently there's Harry Douglas was on Jason Fitz's they do a show together, Jason Fitz and Harry Douglas. And Harry Douglas pulled like a handfuls of clips where Stephon Diggs is NFL open in his mind and not even being looked at by Josh Allen because of the play design by Ken Dorsey. Like, bringing in DeAndre Hopkins does not help any of that. That's more money you have to spend, by the way. And then over at Kansas City, they just went without DeAndre Hopkins. Why spend money and spend cash when they need cash for Chris Jones? Like, none of these other options just don't make sense.
Thinking through, I don't think Buffalo does. I think Kansas City, I could see them saying, "Look,
cash. They already got a lot in cash this year." So
I know. Forgetting the logistics of it, just strategically, I could see them saying, "Look, we're the champions, and we have a little bit of a weakness here. Let's go ahead and fill that hole and go ahead and make ourselves clear cut."
I mean, as long as you got Patrick Mahomes, right? Like, I mean, you got Patrick Mahomes, Travis Kelce, and now Isaiah Pacheco. I don't know. I mean, like, I just don't see the way that they have approached the wide receiver position in general. And the way they detail it behind the scenes is that they feel that they can win on offense as long as Patrick Mahomes is healthy. And that's all that matters. And really, they can win without Patrick Mahomes being healthy. So to me, I will say this about the Patriots. Scott Zolak, who is a crazy man, color commentator for the New England Patriots, okay? He is also a former quarterback. So he works for the team. He's a former quarterback of the team. He said on his show, his radio show, it's kind of like if Jim Wyatt had a radio show, right? Like, that's what this is. You can maybe liken it to Coach Mack going on the behind the scenes, but I don't know if Coach Mack's really like involved. Scott Zolak's been there for so long. I think he's like legit involved in everything. He said that he left the building. He's not going to be a New England Patriot. He was definitive about it. And they said, well, why do you think Tennessee's going to be in it? Yes, I could see him going to Tennessee, but he left the building at Tennessee. He goes, he left the building in New England. He's not going to New England. And they go, does that mean you heard something? Silence. And it like a good 5-second, good 2 beats of silence. And he goes, he left the building. He's not signing with the New England Patriots.
That's normally not allowed. Like, that would be like Mike Keith saying something, honestly.
Yes. Yeah.
So, like, that's not normally allowed. It's like It's like the Jim Wyatt mailbag where he's like, "Yeah, I don't expect Nate Davis to be back." And we're like, "Whoa, that was direct," from a guy who's inside the building. Okay, well, listen, I do think that if it's just the Patriots and the Titans, then the Titans have a far better chance to win their division, a far better chance to make the playoffs, and need DeAndre Hopkins in a bigger way. And therefore, I don't think it would be very difficult for them to outbid New England, honestly.
DeAndre Hopkins does not change my best case scenario, by the way.
I don't really disagree with you on that.
Yeah.
Unless the offense is just the offensive coordinator and the offensive line and the receivers and everything happens, all of a sudden maybe they're a more dynamic offense. But that is, again,
I
very
also try to
wishful
keep my
thinking.
realistic expectations and my best case expectations kind of close, because everybody's best case scenario, right, is like every draft pick. Oh, well, they're going to be an all pro and winning a Super Bowl. Or the worst case scenario is that they're a bust. I mean, like, that's pretty much everybody how they handle best case, worst case. So I try to already go.
Yeah,
like,
I don't.
Yeah, it's just right there. Like, to me, the realistic expectation is this team's going to win division and lose in the playoffs. Like, that is the realistic scenario. Worst case scenario is like everybody gets injured and they are again. I think worst case scenario to me is a team that goes 7 or 8 wins like they did this year. To me, an alternate best case scenario is that they put in Malik Willis, he sucks. They put in Will Levis, he sucks. Ryan Tannehill's injured, and they're like number 2 overall pick. That's actually, I know that's a good case scenario to be in. Just saying.
It's worst, but it's not the worst.
Yeah,
I think.
yeah.
I feel very differently about those definitions, but we're arguing semantics at that point.
Yeah.
I think best case is way up at the top. I think worst case is way at the bottom. And I think reality is directly in the middle, which is where my prediction is going to lie when we get to August and we actually are making predictions on the team. And I say I think they're going to be an 8-9 team. That is not their best case scenario in my mind. So, like, I am baking into my prediction all of the things that I think could go wrong and some of the things that could go right. And the beauty of the NFL is that if everything does go right, you can be very good. And if everything goes wrong, you can be really bad. Like, that's the whole point of the league. It is the most socialist sport in all of American history, of course, ironically.
They're due for an injury.
They are.
Good luck turn here. And the Jaguars are due for an injury bad luck turn. Just throwing that out there.
There you go. That's regression to the mean, as they say.
Yeah.
Football show brought to you by Sinkers Beverages in East Nashville. Sign up for the in-crowd, please. Go check out their store. They got great folks over there. They got a huge beer cooler, walk-in beer cooler, tons of wine, tons of liquor, lots of cool mixers, all these new fancy drinks that you put in cans with liquor. And you got a gin drink in there called the Long Drink, I think, that we had on our trip to Kentucky that was surprisingly refreshing and didn't taste like alcohol at all, which is dangerous. And then, of course,
I saw those this week, last weekend up in Detroit somewhere. I can't remember where we were, but I think we were at the Martini Bar when we just got there, which was one of the worst experiences of the trip.
So they had a gin in a can at a Martini Bar?
They did. I saw it, and I told Lauren, I said, those are really, really good.
Way too dangerously good. So go check them out. They got lots of cool stuff in there, always new stuff. Kingston Group, buildkg.com is the website. Just remember that name. That's all you need to do. Just remember the name. Talk to them, of course, before you make any big decisions about your house. All right. Evaluating Ran Carthon. Outside of DeAndre Hopkins.
Should we put up a poll, A, B, C, or D? What grade would you give him?
God damn it. I think the proper question is, like, the short-term evaluation of Ran Carthon and the long-term evaluation of Ran Carthon. There are two different ways to look at this, and I think it's okay to have different expectations for each of those different scenarios. I certainly think you can say X, Y, or Z about the short term, about this first offseason, and we can limit it to that expectation. I also think there are huge missing question marks inside of that short-term expectation evaluation. There's a lot of words there that don't apply until much further down the road. Namely, the quarterback you drafted in the second round. So I guess my first question to you is, how should people in your mind be evaluating Ran Carthon at this stage of his first offseason?
Okay, so he sort of built a staff, and now he's built even more of a staff after the draft and after free agency. So we're kind of seeing now that he's kind of got his people in there. I don't think the scouting departments are quite complete. We may never know if they are or not, but we just have to assume after this season at some point it's just complete. Who they got's who they got. but he's been adding people. So I look at it in 3 different categories that you look at for a general manager, but they all have different timelines. So I look at it as building a staff, free agency, and the draft. Those are your 3 things. I think he's done really well building a staff. Now, how that staff works, that he has built full, we won't know till the end of next season how that staff looks and how that staff works. And we start gleaning at the end of the 2024 into 2025 what this is. For free agency, you have to look at the players that he got on this particular free agency class. And you look at, did they fill correct positions? Were they the right contract? And how do they perform? And we won't know that until after this year, because most of these guys are on 1-year contracts. So that's very important. If these guys were on 2 or 3 years, maybe you get a little bit of leeway. I think Arden Keys is one of the few on multiple ones. In the draft class, you have to really wait till the beginning of 2026 before you can really evaluate. There's going to be a few people here, like, you're going to know real quick if Will Levis is really bad. But Jalen Duncan could be, and Colton Dow could be. You may have to wait till after 2025. I always give a 2 or 3 year leeway, because then you also, in that 3rd year, you're talking about 5th-year options, who's going to get a second contract. So, like, that will tell you what his draft class was in the scheme of things by then. Like, I feel like you get a very clear picture. You can make sweeping judgments like we've made judgments like Malik Willis, right? Or Isaiah Wilson. Like, those extreme cases where you see them play or you don't ever see them see the field, those cases you can make those judgments on.
I think so. I think you're right. I think free agency you can evaluate within the first 6 games, 12 games, 1 year. I think the draft class is more like a 2-year proposition, but Will Levis could be more of a 3-year proposition. I do think Ed Henry makes a great point about this. Isn't handling media PR another criteria?
Hell
I do
no.
think. I think.
I don't think it's your all's feelings are not involved.
No, that part I think is right, but how that may affect a relationship with a player, which right now it has not necessarily that we know of. It might have. We don't know. I think most of these guys that have been involved in sort of the public conversations have spoken very highly of Ran. So from a personal standpoint,
from a player perspective, I agree with you. Player relations, I agree with you. But maybe that's what Ed Henry's asking. I think it as media and dealing with the fans.
No, like to me, the only negative, like I think he saw the needs that we all thought that they had. They addressed him pretty aggressively.
Except for one. A really big one, even though he's trying right now. But
right, that's true. And again, we'll find out what that means.
Better late than never, I guess.
I think he had a plan that he executed. Whether we like that plan or not is remains to be seen. We can't evaluate it right away, but he fixed the offensive line first. And I still think that's a better thing to fix than the receiving core when you have a bunch of young receivers that may be very talented. So I think fixing the O-line first was the better strategy, and he did that. Maybe he reached at 11. Maybe he overspent on Dillard. You can go down the list. But, like, he addressed the need that I thought was more important first. I like that. I like what he's done in modernizing the front office in terms of bringing in the types of people he's bringing in. I think that's all stuff I would put a check mark by. Potentially replacing Ryan Tannehill is a huge question mark. It could be 3 check marks and define his entire career. It could be a giant X and define his entire career. That one we're just not going to know about. I think one of the only things that I think is already definitively could have done that better is how he has handled information in and out of the press. I think that is the only area I'd say, I think you kind of made a little bit of a mistake there. I think he probably could have handled that better. But on the grand scheme of things that you're talking about, that you're evaluating him on, it is at the bottom. It's at the bottom of the list because right now, all's well that ends.
I personally would even put it on the list, but I mean, because I don't care. I mean, I do care. I mean, obviously, I want all the information, right? Like, obviously, as a guy who talks about it, writes about it, thinks about it all the time, I want all the information. But at the end of the day, in fact, I believe I had this conversation with Robbie Rexroad and Steve Lehman. And
Robbie Rexroad, who's that?
Oh, not Robbie Rex. Sorry, I was thinking Robbie and Rexroad.
That's an interesting individual.
Yeah, but Robbie and I believe it was Steve Lehman. But I think it may have been someone else who was at News Channel 5 at the time because I feel like I'm still blocked by them. But
Steve Lehman, he
I mean, it
would
may not.
never.
That's why I don't think it was Steve Lehman, but it was someone else that was in the news game at the time, back when Mike Vrabel was hired, and both of these guys, pretty much said, this is going to be a really good thing I should need to bring up and bring back on Twitter, but I don't want to get blocked again because I think I got blocked by both guys eventually. But they argued with me and Titans film room Justin Graver at the time. They said that, well, Mike Vrabel sucks talking to the media. This is back when he was first hired, so he's probably not going to be a good coach. And so to me, this does not tie this idea of dealing with the media does not tie. Now, like Ed Henry saying, it's very naive to think player relations won't get leaked to the media and stays in house with stupid. I think that's just what he wants, and that is going to be his coach better, play better, right? We're not discussing things in the media. I am not going to stand in front. What he is saying is that Mike Vrabel, and whoever the player is not going to stand in front of a microphone to you guys and tell you what is going on. Does not mean things aren't going to get leaked, but that's what he's saying. We're not going to be the ones to discuss this out in public.
Was the press conference that you're talking that you got in that argument about? Was that the very early one where Vrabel was talking about, like, was it in his first training camp or something, or his second training camp, where he was talking about? I think I remember, because I think I was on the air when it happened, when I had to be like, oh, I don't think that makes no sense. Just tell us just answer the question, dude. I think was it about defensive backs or something not being prepared, or?
This was in the summer. Like this was a very early definitive thing.
That's what I want to say. It was like July or August of like his first or second year, and it was very much about like I want to say it was about defensive backs or something, or specialty. It was, for some reason, there's a time where I was still on the air at 102.5, and I remember thinking like that was
Steve Lehman. It looks like
that was the dumbest thing he could have said. There's no reason for him to do that, and of course he's learned how to massage his message since then, and it doesn't really affect the team. So you're a first-time head.
It was in May. Titans, and this is based off of Music City Miracles thing. Titans media beef with Vrabel's UDFA policy says a lot, and this started from there. I said this is it, but my tweet that initially started, but there's all kinds of stuff. But they've unblocked me since. So
nice. Welcome back.
It is what it is. And I enjoy Robbie and Rex Road, obviously, and all that stuff. But it says this is everything. This is a perfect encapsulation of everything I've had. I and many fans have been saying for the last 24 hours. Bravo. But this is what this is what I guess we were talking about. But it was I can't remember, but there's some
you're saying it was like a month ago?
No, back in May when he first got hired.
I was going to say there was no. Let me say one thing. There was no Robbie and Rex Road. It was Braden and Fitz.
Okay, yeah.
Just want to be fucking clear.
I'm saying I just enjoy Robbie and Rex Road now.
I do. They're lovely people. They're lovely grown men.
This has nothing to do. I was talking to Robbie and Steve with Justin Graver on one. I guess he didn't give access to you guys to undrafted free agents, which is the most ridiculous thing to get mad over, by the way, because they're undrafted free agents.
That's not the one I was remembering. I'm gonna have to go back and dig up the one I was remembering.
Because like Vrabel did not hit it off with you guys, and guess what? Didn't fucking affect his performance on the field at all. So that's why I feel like what he says, it's more about what he does than what he says to me. Now, let's Ran Carthon comes out and is in like support of murdering dogs and beheading giraffes and
Jesus.
And he decides that he's gonna send players down to the Titanic to scope it out, then I'm gonna have concerns about it. But
apparently it's the definition of woke to go down and search for the Titanic.
That was a weird.
First of all, just picture beheading a giraffe for a second. Where do you cut it? Like, honestly, like where do you cut it at the top?
It depends on your reach, right?
Neck,
so like it's probably gonna be like neck and chest, unless you're gonna
right. In which case you've got a long neck there to take care of. Like, you need an 18-wheeler to get that sucker out of there. If you're gonna try to cover up the evidence, of course.
No, I mean, obviously, if you're gonna behead a giraffe, you just leave it in the street as a message to the other giraffes.
I can't with you sometimes.
Do I think he could have handled like negotiations better? Likely. Like, do you really ask Kevin Byard take a pay cut? Like, is that really
right,
the
right,
way? I
right.
mean, it makes sense, but is that really your first? Because
That's
now
all I'm saying.
everybody's like, yeah.
That's all I'm
But like,
saying.
as
But
far as how he talks or what he says in the media doesn't really bother me too much. It doesn't.
other
It doesn't to me scream like that he's a bad GM. I guess.
No, I don't think there is any way any human being can definitively say he is a good or bad GM today.
Oh yeah, I
There's
think
no way.
giving grades is ridiculous. I guess I think I responded to Buck's poll that I was making fun of. I for incomplete because there's just not enough data,
There's
and it's
zero.
really and
There's
to be
zero data.
honest, judging someone on their first year as a predictor for future success in other years doesn't make sense either, right? Like, I mean, you got to almost look at it at the end of the year, exit interview. Now we're on to the next year.
To me, it is about the style of the approach, not the eventual outcomes yet. Because right now there is 0 football games to judge him on. 0 fucking games. 0. So there is no data. What you can do is you can say, I like the direction or the plan or the strategy. And then you have to hold yourself accountable for that in the future. Because if you say, I love the fact that Ran Carthon is a player's GM, that he's gone with a bunch of analytics guys, and that he's a player's GM. That's great right now. But what happens if this team gets soft, which is not likely under Mike Vrabel? But if it gets soft and all of a sudden it's too lovey-dovey and we go back to some like hardcore GM, well, then that will have been the wrong strategy. So we can't, to me, it's all about what do you want this team to do? We wanted to modernize the front office. Check. He's done that. We wanted to modernize the offense with new personnel and new people in new positions. He and Mike Vrabel have done all of that. They need to fix the offensive line. They've tried that. We'll find out by weeks, probably 4 or 5, whether or not that's worked or not. And so it's all about this. You can only judge the strategies at this point. You can't say that was right or wrong. You can't say like there's nothing you can say. Like there's 0 games. There's no way to judge him other than like I agree with the strategy. I disagree with the strategy. Not drafting a wide receiver. Fine. Disagree with that strategy. That's totally acceptable. I applaud you if you think that's the wrong strategy. I probably agree with you, and we'll find out if it was the right risk or not.
You're right.
That's it.
Yep.
There you go.
It's
And if
kinda
he
like-
gets DeAndre Hopkins, it's an A,
Yeah.
like Ed says.
Yeah, yeah. If he gets him, it's good, right? I mean, that's just another feather in the cap, but everybody's gonna remember or forget that they wanted the Titans to sign D-Hop, and if D-Hop is bad, they're gonna blame him for even signing him.
This is
Even though that everybody wanted him, just like Julio Jones,
yes,
just like all these other guys that John Robinson signed. If
this
you're
is
for it now, you got to make sure that you clarify your statement. While I am for it, and it was a good process, bad result. That's how you got to look at it. There's bad process, bad result, good process, good result, good process, bad result, and bad process, good result. Wait, did I already do that twice?
Yeah, no, we know what you're saying. This is what so this brings up a lot of PTSD for me personally, because on the air, there were a lot of people going into the season in 2019 with people saying like, like, I don't know about Marcus's future. There's a lot of people saying that. I don't know about Marcus's future. Plenty of people saying that. Not one human being, unless you have a receipt to show me, was calling for Ryan Tannehill to start because he was going to have the best year of his career. Not one person saw that coming. Not one person said that. Not one person, not all of you changed your opinions at the end of the season. Not you specifically, but everyone, me included. Oh, of course, switching to Ryan Tannehill was the right decision at that point. Like that, he gets hurt and he goes on to have a career year, but no one saw that coming.
I believe I said that at some point Ryan Tannehill will start. And that's just based off Marcus always being injured. Wasn't because of Marcus being bad or anything. And it wasn't because I thought Ryan Tannehill was going to be some savior from the heavens, sit down and lead in it for a year and a half, some of the best scoring offenses that we've seen the Tennessee Titans have. So I just, I think I agree with your overall point is that like nobody really thought Ryan Tannehill should start, except for maybe Mike Tannenbaum during that summer. I think he may have said it.
Maybe you're right.
But
I remember us like joking about, no, there's not a quarterback controversy. It's Marcus's job. But the facts
there really wasn't a quarterback controversy or quarterback battle.
Right.
But there was a guy in the wings that if Marcus failed and he was given every opportunity to succeed, that they were going to put Ryan Tannehill in.
Right.
But everybody else, I think, made it a quarterback competition in the national media, kind of like what they're talking about Will Levis versus Ryan Tannehill when he first got drafted. Like, there is no controversy. It is Ryan Tannehill's job until he loses the job via poor play,
Right.
thus eliminating the Titans from playoff contention and or injury.
Yep. Again, I have no problem saying I was wrong about Ryan Tannehill being as good as he was. My argument to people is that there's not one of you that was right about that. There's not one human being that has a receipt that says,
except for maybe Mike Tannenbaum, but
33 touchdowns, number one Titan scoring offense in NFL in league team history, like at 2,000-yard rush. Like, no one, if anyone has that tweet, send it to me and I will apologize to you.
And listen,
but no one's got that.
That was the summer that Diana Rossini really got on the radar, and she was really pushing this narrative that, they like Ryan Tannehill, they like everything they've seen, and she was kind of on the edges of being in there. But everybody shat on her like, "Oh, what is this woman?" And this is how they said it. "Oh, what does this woman know?" Because they're all sexist here down the South. "What does this woman know?" And blah blah blah. And it turns out she's one of the best Titans insiders because she's plugged directly into the team. It's just funny how things end up 5 years later.
Yes, I think it's important for people in the media to look at themselves and just say, yeah, I was dead wrong about that.
Yeah.
Fans don't have to do that, and that's okay. But when I tell you that you were wrong and that you were wrong with
like Caleb Farley, right? I mean, we were both glowing about Caleb Farley when he got drafted. And guess what? We ended up being wrong.
Right.
Because guess what? For now, until year 3 starts.
For now, we are very wrong, and there's a chance we'll probably be very wrong for another 6 months or so. And then, if he's any good in the following season, then we'll all be like, "Oh, he was a nice player when he's playing wide receiver for the Tennessee Titans."
Yeah,
because remember, he played wide receiver, great athlete, tall, rangy kid, played wide receiver in college. Just throwing it out there. All right. So if you're going to evaluate Ran Carthon right now, do so with caution. Do so with nuance and subtlety, and understand that there's a good like 36 months to go before we truly judge it. And unfortunately, whether we like it or not, it is almost exclusively tied to one human being.
Yeah.
It is almost exclusively tied to Will Levis. So,
well, and also, if you're going to evaluate Ran Carthon's job, you better damn well, if you're going to come at me and say Ran Carthon sucks, it needs to be Ran Carthon / Mike Vrabel suck, because they are in lockstep. No doubt about it.
Who gets the first name in the hyphen? Is it Vrabel Carthon or is it Carthon Vrabel? I think it's Vrabel - Carthon, I think.
Yeah, I mean,
I think it's
Ran Vrabel first.
Yeah, it's Ran Vrabel Carthon is his
name.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, no, I agree with you on that one. So quickly, let's look at. So the reason I wanted to bring up recruiting in the SEC, go to Sinkers. Remember the name, the Kingston Group. So the Florida Gators. You and I have talked a lot about Billy Napier and Florida having a weird season this year, and things aren't. Hey, there's a lot of questions around this, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
And I find them the most interesting team in the SEC.
They are. And one of the things that I've said a lot about Florida is that what Billy Napier is doing is building out this large-scale infrastructure around the Florida Gators program, within the Florida Gators program, to succeed in the future, which is building out collectives, building out NFL-style personnel staffs, building out, these big, giant recruiting rooms and scouting departments. And, again, it's infrastructure for your college football program. They just opened up an indoor practice facility, all this other stuff. And is he going to reap the benefits of that if the team doesn't succeed in the next 2 seasons? Well, right now, the Florida Gators are the hottest team in the entire country on the recruiting trail. They have landed 8 or 9 players, most of whom are not from the state of Florida, by the way. But they're all very highly rated. They have the number 3 class in America, and they have the number 3 rated quarterback in America coming in to the Florida Gators. They just landed a bunch of top 100 kids this week. They're number 1 in the SEC in recruiting right now. The question is, what does that mean? What does it mean?
That's been my big thing about why I do not care about recruiting classes, right? Like, I don't know if Athlon does this. Maybe you guys do this, and maybe some site does. But I would love to know where those recruiting classes, those players recruited, what they ended up being throughout their career. So like that particular recruiting class for Alabama back in 2008. Okay, we're now, 4 years later, 2012. I want that reevaluated. Like that to me is a better sign of success than just saying you got a bunch of guys in this recruiting class, but well, how many of them were actual contributors to you guys winning a couple of national championships? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, it's no different than the
Like
Carthon.
Carthon. Yeah, it's kind of like Ran Carthon.
It's no different than the Carthon discussion. But it's recruiting's a little bit different in that, sort of like the draft in the NFL, you are selling hope to like the teams that are shitty. And in college football recruiting, what a lot of fans have only to cling to, especially a program like Florida today, not Florida of like when they're great, but like Florida right now, is like, I need tangible evidence that what you're doing is working. You don't need them to actually sign in December. You don't even, because you can build momentum on this. You can, one thing can lead to another.
Can't they still like transfer or sign with another team?
Sure.
Because that's the big thing right now, right? Like some other NIL team can come in. So like, how do you cover that and compensate for that? Like, okay, right now you said they got like what, 9 players from top 100, I believe is what you said, or something like that.
No, they got committed. Like 8 players in the last week, like 3 or 4 of them are in the top 100, but almost all of them are highly touted. So
like if those guys next week decide they're not going to Florida because they're getting paid more money to go to Texas or something, like how do you? It's like an ever shifting thing in the NCAA now. So like, how does this is just an interesting topic. It's not really the topic, or maybe it is how to follow recruiting classes.
It is,
but how do you do that? Like, how do you have to have like a dedicated web page or a dedicated like Twitter thing that you keep up with, like kind of like how I do the stats every week? Okay, well, here's where they're at in the recruiting classes. These guys have exited. Here's where they're at. Maybe do it monthly or something.
It's no different than like following a fantasy football player in like week 4. Like you can be the number 1 running back in all of fantasy football in week 4, but what matters is where you finish. But the facts are, at week 4 you were number 1. Right? Derrick Henry could be the number 1 fantasy running back after 5 games. He could finish number 6. But all that matters in the first 5 was that he was number 1. Like, as a point of fact in that moment. It is just it's like a poll for like politics or a social issue. Polls are just a reflection
of approval ratings.
Exactly what it is. They are a reflection of the current state. It's a capture, a glimpse in a moment of time, and that's it. It's nothing more. And to me, recruiting rankings are the capture of the glimpse of the moment in time. And right now, Florida is doing things that they haven't done in a long time, in a decade. And that is the fact right now today. That could change in 6 months on signing day. But the facts of what we know about Florida is that we do know that they are building out all this infrastructure, spending all this money on all these things to make Florida better at recruiting. And right now, they are significantly better at recruiting. So to me, that's the story in the moment.
Do you think that buys Billy Napier time? Because we kind of talked about it, like I think when we're kind of giving looking at the SEC schedule and stuff, I think you kind of alluded to it, or at least that's how I interpret it, was like he's building the team for the next coach. Like in your mind, he's building the team for the next coach. But don't you think that do you think that he gets how much leeway does this excellent recruiting buy him?
So I don't necessarily think that. What I'm saying is that that's a possibility. Like if they and this is exactly what, to me, this is what this story is. They are a 6-6-ish football team this year. Whether they recruit great or not, they're going to have the same exact record. Recruiting has no impact on the record. Zero impact. So if they're 6-6 or 7-5 or 5-7, whatever it is, it's exactly the same. But it is far more palatable if you are the number 4 recruiting class in America than if you're number 18. And Florida's 18th in the nation, 20th in the nation, not good enough for Florida Gators recruiting. Not why they hired Billy Napier, not why they're spending all this money on this infrastructure. This is not any different than Josh Heupel, like with his recruiting. The turnaround was great. People were excited, but the recruiting with the turnaround, even better. 11 wins, great, amazing. No question. Hendon Hooker, fantastic. Beat Alabama, all this fun stuff, but also we were recruiting great too. So it's another piece of the puzzle for college football fans. But to me, if it's 6-6 at Florida and they finish 4th in recruiting, which is where they're at right now, roughly, to me, the 6-6 almost doesn't matter. Like
gotcha.
you knew the infrastructure, you knew you needed these other things first before the results were going to come.
It's kind of like if Alabama goes like 11-2, but they're out of the top 10 in recruiting. Really doesn't matter.
Kind of. I mean, yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
like I, like A&M's. It's almost the opposite with A&M. Like they've
Like
done all the
drafting in
recruiting.
the 29th overall pick. You finished it. You lost the AFC Championship game, but you're picking 20. But now you got a worse draft pick. But it doesn't really matter because you finished right. Like I
Yeah.
guess
Well, it's the hope you are set. Like there is proof of concept if they finish with the top 5 class. Like this is the same thing with like we could do this with Auburn too. With Hugh Freeze. If Auburn is terrible again this year and they're 500 or they're 5-7 or they're 6-6, are people going to be like Auburn fans like, oh, it's year 1, okay? But if they have a top 10 class with a 6-6 record, the 6-6 record goes down a little smoother. Like
gotcha.
it just and so
it's like a
all about
lime after a tequila shot.
it is the expectation building that's happening because what Florida should be doing in theory, like they did under Urban Meyer, is what Georgia and Alabama and Ohio State do, which is recruit top 5 classes. And if they do that, they're going to be better. Whether Billy Napier gets to coach them or not, they're going to be better because great players eventually win games most of the time.
Yeah.
So to me, it's just this this snapshot in time. It's like, but keep an eye on it because if it continues, then we're starting to see proof of concept for what Billy Napier is building at Florida, if that makes sense. Like that to me, that's why it's interesting. It's just it's a little moment, and then I'm more about like don't tell me about the baby, show me, don't tell me about the labor pains, show me the baby. Like I don't care about recruiting really until they sign their letter. And to your point, even after that, they can go into the portal whenever they want. So there's a million more steps after the recruiting, right? It's development, it's coaching staff, it's off-season conditioning, it's a million things. But like the first step is getting the good players. That's the very first step. And right now, Florida is getting the very good players for now.
So is Florida in the golden age of football? Or are they in their golden era?
Is that an Al Golden joke, Jason? Is that what that is?
No, that's a UT fans and alumni in the local Nashville media who are like, I think Will Bowling put out this tweet and listing all their accolades and all the tournaments they've been in and everything, and calling it the golden era of Tennessee sports. And it is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen. It is the equivalent of hanging up multiple participation trophies and banners like the Indianapolis Colts do. So I better not hear Will Bowling make fun of the Colts hanging up a banner, because I'm just going to take that tweet, Photoshop it on that banner, and I'm going to send it to him.
Here's what I can say about that topic, which I did not know existed as a thing in this universe.
Oh, yeah.
The Tennessee, like when I was in college, they had won a national championship 2 years earlier in football. They won multiple national championships in women's basketball, and they played in the College World Series when I was there. That was like 20 years ago, less than 20, 20 years ago.
I think Mike called that the actual golden era of UT sports.
98 to 05. That is.
He even brought up the Director's Cup, which is another thing that can actually legit tell you, and they haven't been in the top 10, and they probably won't be in the top 10 again this year. So, like, it's just, I don't know. It's just these UT fans, man, they get a little bit of taste of success of football, and they think that they are for sure an 11-win team every year.
National championship in football, Pat Summitt's heyday, and a Rod Delmonico College World Series team. I don't know how. What else? I don't know what today is better than that. I don't know how it's even close. It's not even fucking close. It's not even close.
Yeah,
not even close. All right, Sinkers Beverages, Kingston Group, 2 great local sponsors. We do appreciate you guys for supporting us, all of you for listening and hanging out with us. We do appreciate it. All the comments, rate, review, subscribe. By the way, brand new product. Pod Bless Nashville, all about Nashville news and history and politics and media and business. So go check that out. Brand new show we launched today, actually. So go check that out. Football and Other F Words podcast with you and Mike Herndon. You got stackingtheinbox.com, all kinds of great stuff still going on. We're not taking a break during the summer. We still have nutritional content with no empty calories here on the show each and every Monday and Thursday at 1 o'clock live. We do appreciate it. All right. Anything else, Zach? Did I miss anything?
We're good.
I don't think I did. Safe travels to you and the missus, of course. We'll talk to you guys next week. Thanks for listening. Have a great weekend.